Hi, Dr. Grice. I wanted to respond to your question because I think it's a question that is really interesting to think about. And I think a lot of students who are trying to get their master's and become a counselor don't typically think about things like that. So I think it's important to address and to consider whether your agency, if you work in an agency someday, if they're going to determine that, or if you're going to work in a private practice, whether that's the practices form that does that for every counselor, or if the counselor themselves set that up. I think that's interesting to think about. When I was reading the example informed consent form for a practice in West Texas, they did mention the way you approach clients not showing up. They asked, of course, that you would let them know within a 24-hour window, and that if you don't and you cancel last minute, or if you just don't show, that you will be charged. And they also mentioned that insurance does not cover that. They didn't say what the charge would be, but they definitely mentioned that you would be charged. And I think that's interesting. When I was getting my bachelor's degree, I interned at a counseling office, and the counselor I was interning for actually had a lot of no-shows, people that did not let her know within 24 hours. They would either let her know an hour ahead of time, or they just wouldn't show. And I'm not exactly sure if she charged for the no-shows. I never asked her, but I feel like she did, but I'm not exactly sure. But I personally believe that although I know things do come up for clients and things like that, I feel like you do kind of have to set a policy. The counselor does need to let the clients know in the informed consent form, which is required in the ACA standard A2B, that you do talk to your clients and inform them about billing fees and what would happen if they don't show up or cancel an appointment, things like that. I think that's just an important policy for counselors to start at the outset of therapy with their clients, and just say, look, here's the thing, here's how it's going to work. I understand that things happen, but this is our policy and this is what we stand by. And I just think it's important for the counselor because they have a schedule, and that's time that they could be in with a client, in with a different client, and it's time that they don't really have to waste. And so I think it's important for the client to understand that they need to respect the counselor's time. And when I looked at the Georgia State Code of Ethics, they really don't mention specific things that are required to be on the informed consent form. They just say that it's required that the counselor provide an informed consent form and get that informed consent from the client. But I think that the concept of no-show clients is something very important to consider and think about now, rather than waiting until you begin counseling and trying to think about it. Thank you for providing a good question for us to think about.